Good morning, Ben. How are you doing?
Hello, Jeremy Quintana.
Been a while. Been
Long
like,
time.
Yeah, been like,
12 hours.
yeah, that's crazy. Anyways, um, yeah, I think, so I've known you for a while. I think maybe a good way to intro this for people who maybe don't know you is you can talk a bit about, just like a short pitch about yourself and what you've done in university, uh, to build the skill set that you currently have and when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Yeah. I think it's useful if I start a little bit farther back because I think I have a little bit different background than most people in this space.
Yeah.
Specifically, that I come from a very for-profit lens, kind of almost corporate upbringing in a sense. Maybe that's a little bit extreme. But the person I ascribe most of my entrepreneurial nature to is my father. He is a business professor in the School of Business here. He teaches supply chain. And so he's worked in these massive, like $100+ billion companies. He worked in big pharma his first 10 years doing like these ERP system migrations, which is like enterprise resource planning. So it's like all your production planning, all your raw materials, all your shipping and all that. So he was an industrial engineer and like very into this like big corporate world. That's where he got his start. And so he also started a company. He transitioned to becoming a professor in the business school and also on the side started a company. And so that was kind of my first experience seeing a company get started and was one of the things that made me entrepreneurial from a pretty young age. As well as him introducing me this podcast I saw when I was a kid called How I Built This, which is like this very well-produced NPR Guy Raz podcast. And that's the host. His name's Guy Raz. And just absolutely fell in love with this story of entrepreneurs. Really what it was for me was this combination of the lens I saw business through that my dad taught me, which is organizations are a way to organize people towards a common mission to do more good than you could possibly do as an individual. So organizations are a way to do more good than you could possibly do as an individual. And that was how I saw the world as like a 12-year-old. So that was super influential. And then combining that as an entrepreneur, it seemed like, to me, like this was like the most dense, potent manifestation of being an organization builder was being the entrepreneur. So after I was listening to these stories, because it seemed like this was the way to get most obsessed about being an organization builder or building a company or whatever you want to call it. And I was an obsessive kid. I was like 3 obsessions as a kid. It was school, I was an absolute nerd. I was also really big into soccer, so I was a big sports guy, and I also was super into piano. That was probably one of my biggest ones. So I was a competitive pianist as well as a jazz pianist. And so really I got into the entrepreneurial world because I was obsessed with building organizations and trying to do that. So I get to college with this obsessive wanting to build a company, but I'd gone to a high school where nobody was like me. I went to a rural Wisconsin high school with 2,500 kids. We had 4 hallways in our entire high school. 4 hallways, it was 1 square, the entire high school. Math was on one side, science was on this side, English was on this side, plus the other languages, and then everything else over there. And then art over there. So it was like very, very small high school. And I literally created like the business club at my high school. Like nobody knew what business was. Everyone just thought it was like some greedy guy in a suitcase trading in the stock market or something like that, which I did not see it as that. However, that was what I grew up in. So I got to college and I really, really, really wanted to find my people because I had just been deprived of it for so long. It almost felt like I was wearing a mask in a sense because I just didn't know where my people were, at least professionally and honestly, this more impact values, deeper level. Because I had already kind of had this philosophical nature as a child because I was an only child, I'd love to think. So I come into college with this kind of like entrepreneurship plus philosophy impact backing. And really to me, like the way to make an impact was through entrepreneurship. That's what I saw. And so I wanted to find other entrepreneurs doing that. There's 2 things I wanted to do. I wanted to start a company and I wanted to find other people who wanted to start a company. I figured the latter was the best way to start. And so basically the next 4 years became just a mission of an only child finding his people. And really what I did for that and what I can get into is I just made it my mission to provide as much value as possible to entrepreneurs, such that it was as obvious for them as possible to become my friend. Because what's a good friend other than one just that gives relentlessly? Sometimes I like doing a thing with my friends where I'm kind of like in a giving war, where I'm constantly trying to give more than the other person, and it makes a really fun dynamic. And that's kind of who I've become in college, and I really enjoy being that person. And so for the next 4 years, I built the entrepreneurship community at UW-Madison. I I was kind of like co-president, vice president of an organization called Transcend. We ran a $42,500 pitch competition, 2-day pitch competition. We claim it's the largest student-run pitch competition in the nation. We even found one that's bigger, and fully student-run. At the same time, I was running a student startup accelerator. We had startups in there who are now valued at, there's one that's valued at $35 million that started there. There's one that exited for 7 figures. There's another one that went on Shark Tank. It got invested in by Mark Cuban. There's just a whole host of some of the coolest people. Another one just raised a round of $1.6 million pre-seed and is going to raise a $10 million round in the coming months. So just some really talented people. In entrepreneur speak, this is like proof of like good people. Okay. So I get into this room, I really see what's happening, and it's exciting to me. Like, people are ambitious, people are striving for solving really big problems, and just relentlessly acting. It's to the point, like, one of my friends, his name's Jake. He's a great example of your like epitome of an entrepreneur. He's just always thinking about his business, always acting. Every single conversation, there's something about his business that's being talked about. It's a pure obsession, and he would say that himself. It's a pure obsession of just doing, going, go, act. Now, I built another entrepreneurship community after that accelerator shut down. That grew to like 150 members. I then have done 3 job fairs since. I've done like 20 private meetups since in like 2 years. I built a company, which we can talk about, a recruiting agency, which has gotten 14 people place. I've done all this stuff in the entrepreneurship world. But what I kind of started realizing is this, I had 2 sides of me. I had this entrepreneurial side of me that loved to just solve big problems. And I had another side of me that loved thinking about why. Why do I solve these problems? At the same time, I was getting a philosophy major. I'm a triple major, data science, business philosophy. And I stumbled across a TED Talk my sophomore year. First thing I stumbled across was Peter Singer's this drowning child analogy. I forget what the paper's called, but that Peter Singer paper in my ethics class, my sophomore fall ethics class, and then shortly after that, I found Will McCaskill's TED Talk about effective altruism. And that was kind of, that along with my philosophy classes that I was just starting to take, were kind of the first time where, one, in a class I felt like I was in flow state. I'm like, this is who I am, discussing purely logical arguments, not trying to like make these like emotional statements to prove your point. I just was never really into that. I just loved having this clear logical argument. And then also, like, truly trying to do the most good was very influential to me. But what I started realizing in this group is that there's such a focus on go. There really is not much thinking about why, other than for the sake of being able to go faster. Like, the only reason really in the entrepreneurship we think about why is such that we can go after a bigger market, or such that we can figure out what customers want, such that we can build a bigger company. It's all for the sake of building a bigger company and driving more action and raising more money. But really, at the end of the day, like, the goal of a business is to drive a lot of revenue and ideally make a big exit. Like, that's the goal of startup. And over time, that was less appealing for me, especially once I started my own company, and I've been lucky enough to do like a 5-figure deal in my company, where I am on a sales call, I close a deal, I fulfill that deal, I send the invoice. And for most entrepreneurs, that's the joy, is like doing that game. But for me, that was never fulfilling. There was always this missing sense, this like gap of like, but why? Like, but if I abstract away the money, if I see money as like this vanity metric that doesn't matter, and I look away and I look at what's actually happening, it just feels like there's nothing that I'm truly contributing. Like maybe there is, I'm solving some sort of problem, someone wants it, but like the amount of value that I could contribute is just so much higher if I wasn't just trying to optimize for money. And that was when I found like really this was about a few months ago, and this was when I really was like, okay, I need to pivot here. I need to try to find people that are a little bit more aligned on this front too. Like I love the entrepreneurship community, these are my best friends, but they just get excited about little different things than I do, which I think the economy's set up that way to be excited about those things, but I'm just a little bit different. And that's when I went to EAG. I flew there, and I have a lot of opinions about how that went from my perspective, from coming from this world that I've come from. But there definitely is like a small niche of that community that does fulfill that from what I've seen so far, which I'm very, very excited about. And I'll leave it at that. But that's where I'm at right now, is like, there's this community. I've done a lot of community building, which we can talk about more. I've built this company. I've spent a lot of time in the entrepreneurship world. However, it feels for me like there's this piece missing where it's thinking about, why am I doing what I'm doing? How can I create the most impact? What does it mean to create the most good? All the questions that EA asks, and apply that with his entrepreneurial spirit. That's like kind of the world I'm trying to get into.
Yeah, sounds good. I think, yeah, a good setup for the rest of the conversation is to talk a little bit about your experience at EAG, especially, I imagine you found people that fit that small gap where they have their hands in like both worlds at once.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested in if you can name names, like who you met, or just like the general takeaways you had from meeting them. And at least for me, like in conversations that we had after EAG, for you, the main thing was like these people need to stop thinking and start acting more, or have like a stronger bias towards action.
Or at least on the spectrum of like thinking, acting. Like this is the entrepreneurship world. This world, I don't know what that would be. Probably like pure philosophy.
Yeah.
Like I think right now it's maybe too far towards pure philosophy from what I've seen and how I've seen value be driven through the entrepreneurship world. It feels to me that needs to be at least pulled this way some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Not all the way, but some degree.
Yeah. So could you talk more about just like your EG experience as a whole? Like when did you have that realization, I guess?
Yeah. The realization that this was too far to the right for me, too far towards pure philosophy. Yeah, I think it wasn't so much of I think it was more of just the entire experience of EAG that really solidified for me. I had the hypothesis going in that this would be the case from what I had seen. However, I didn't know until I met people. So I'd say, I had maybe 7, probably 10 conversations, 7 scheduled one-on-ones at EAG. And I met with mostly people who were in the entrepreneurship world, or at least interfaced with it more than most others. For example, I met with Ben Williamson at Charity Entrepreneurship. He was their previous director of recruitment. I met with a guy named Finn Metz, who's running Selden Labs, which is a startup accelerator for companies building an AGI security, so for-profit companies. I met with a guy named Jonah Weinbaum, who's leading Voyager at Blue Dot, which is a startup accelerator for people building the civilizational resilience space, which is focusing on AI risks, biosecurity risks. I met with, a lot of people like this. I met with Videhi, her name is Videhi Argua. She is chief of staff at Theorem, which is software verification startup, which is also a for-profit startup. So I met with people that kind of had feet in both sides and had done entrepreneurship in the past. And those people to me, a lot of these people, also Harmon Harmon's awesome, I love Harmon. Harmon's watching this, let's go. But yeah, I think Harmon's probably the best example I've seen of what we need more of from at least what I've seen so far. Harmon's the type of person that I want to build a community of Harmons. That would be, I spoke to you earlier, and I can get to this more of the first step in building a community is finding your ideal, what we call in entrepreneurship world, customer profile, or ideal community member profile, or whatever you want to call it. That ideal persona, I think more Harmons would go a long way for EA. But yeah, I kind of soaked in. So a lot of people I met with were very entrepreneurial ready, but I kind of soaked in from what I was going to and the conversation I was having that there's a lot of meta work happening at some level of abstraction. Maybe it's very, very high, like, very pure philosophy. Maybe something, I don't know. I don't really have names there. I mean, I think some pure philosophy is very necessary, especially I think like EA, like global priorities, like research. I think Global Priorities Institute or something like this is like necessary. That's maybe very philosophy. And then I think there's levels of abstraction lower than that, like a lot of the kind of accelerators, like these talent accelerators, maybe like a MATS or any of the other MATS variations in EA. I don't know all the names, but where still the work being done is getting people into the field, which is still is a level of abstraction. Like it felt like most people were at some sort of level of abstraction. It was very hard to find people just doing the work. There are a lot of researchers like within it, but it still feels like that is some level of abstraction. To me, in the entrepreneurship world, like I know researchers is like a very prestigious thing in the EA world, but in the entrepreneurial world, research is like almost, it's not frowned upon because there's a whole niche of entrepreneurship where it's commercializing research, but it's like not that common actually. It's seen that, to put it bluntly, it's seen among most entrepreneurs that researchers have their head in the sky. Like they're not grounded enough. Like it's something like, it's like okay, research. It's like okay, you're not doing anything. So that's like the sentiment in the entrepreneurship world to like research, which I think is very, very different from what I've seen in the EA world, which I think some balance of that would probably be healthy is kind of what I'm getting at. So that was, I saw just a lot of like research and thinking about and a lot of meta level thinking, like a lot, and like thinking about how do you grow an organization that does more meta work. And I just like, it was hard to find the people just like actually solving the problems and like putting in solutions into place right now that like stockpile more masks, or like how do we implement far UVC lighting like into buildings. That I haven't done a lot of, but these are like some proposals that Blue Dot has had for work proposals, or just like actual things that right now could really, really benefit us was harder for me to find. And people both working directly in these problems and building organizations directly solving these problems was just hard for me to find.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think this is a good segue into the insights you have on community building and how you've done it here. Maybe we can start with first, like you mentioned Harmon's like an example of like the world just needs more Harmons. Can you describe some traits of like what this Harmon profile is?
Yeah, so Harmon is, I think he's like 24 years old. He's a recent grad from UW-Madison, and he came out of UW-Madison. He was the president of Wisconsin Biosecurity Initiative. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
And went to work at Secure Bio as a researcher for, I think, about a year, and then ended up joining a co-founder of his now as the CTO of a startup that just went through YC, Y Combinator, a startup accelerator in San Francisco, the largest. And they are right now, from what I understand, I haven't talked to Harmon that much, but from my like hour of talk with him, basically what they're doing right now is they are running a bunch of tests. They're working specifically on biosecurity. They're working in the intersection of AI and bio, and trying to figure out ways to maybe create some sort of benchmarks for AI labs. There's like some benchmark companies that are happening right now. Some sort of benchmark for AI labs to make sure that their models do not spit out bioengineered pandemics as outputs. Or he's doing other tests as well. I don't know exactly what they are. But this is the life of an entrepreneur. You are constantly you're taking some problem that's very, very important, and you are going out into the world, you're talking to a lot of people, and you're running tests about, literally the tests are, well, okay, I'm going to come up with what we call as some like offer. There's a whole nother dimension of for-profit world. You have to make money. Like this is like this is a whole job. Like business, what business means is figuring out a way to make money. And so you basically have to find something that people want so much that they're willing to pay you for it. And that takes a lot of tests. So currently they're like testing, they're trying to figure out some sort of solution that they can scale as a for-profit business, because if you can make it for-profit, you can get a lot more money in the door much faster if it's a viable business, because you can raise venture capital money. And at the same time, make it some sort of dual use purpose where it also is highly impactful and has this kind of dual use where it's like, okay, there's a market need for it right now, and there's a need for it to combat like global catastrophic risks like bioengineered pandemic risks. So I just really like this where it's like, okay, I go out into the world, I have some sort of like specific problem, I have some sort of domain expertise, like he spent maybe 3 years now in this area, 1 year professionally, and he's at the frontier now. Like he's 24, he's at the frontier. He's like, yeah, there's not many people at my stage already. Like you don't need to be that, it doesn't take that long to get there because it's such a new field. And he's going out, he's running these tests, he's actually putting something out in front of people, like, hey, is this something you would use? Because like the only way to like make stuff that actually does an impact is by getting it in use. Like if we just have ideas that never get used, then there is no impact. That is the most ineffective use of our time possible if it's not being used. So we need to go make something that's going to be used, even if, that means that it's not like the idealized version of it. We live in a world where it can't always be the ideal solution that has gone through all these random controlled trials where it's like the absolute best thing. Sometimes you just have to get it in front of people and build a solution that works very well, but at least it's in use and at least it's making some impact.
Got it. So I guess to summarize the Harmon profile, it's someone who understands let's see, who has the domain expertise that's been built quickly, that is actually working directly on solving the problem rather than at some meta level of abstraction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, that was a little bit long way to say it. But yeah, the summary is like, yeah, someone who's taking an idea. So for example, Blue Dot writes a lot of work proposals, taking one of these proposals of a specific idea and then going out into the world and then talking to people who would actually use this thing. Talking to people, for example, if you need to get a certain far UVC lighting into a building that would drastically reduce the amount that airborne pathogens can be transmitted in that area, going and talking to those people that run the building, and it's like, hey, why can I not get this in there now? And then they're going to tell you, because of this building regulation. It's like, okay, maybe we should go lobby that building regulation. Maybe no one knew about it because no one freaking asked them. So it's like you got to go out there, you got to ask people, and you got to start trying to do it. And then you learn a lot that way.
Got it. Cool. So in our conversation yesterday that led to me asking you should come on, or like I should podcast you for this, you were talking about your very opinionated way that you build communities. Mm-hmm. And this step that we've just gone through right here is one of them, which is like, for you, it's like identifying, being able to point at someone and say, I want more people like you in this room. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe that's a good place to start with, like, give us an outline of your opinionated way of doing community building. And then if it's helpful, you can go into like how you've done it here.
Yes. So this is how I would build community. Okay. So basically, I'm going to approach this in a very entrepreneurial way, which you'll see as I'm laying it out what that actually means. What that actually means, I hinted at earlier, but you first want to come up with this ideal profile, this ideal persona of who is this person in your community. Or it's the same thing if you're selling to someone. Like if you have a customer, who is that ideal customer? Whatever you're doing, whatever goal you have with your organization, if you have identified the goal, and in Blue Dot's case, it's like increasing the number of exceptional people working on critical issues to make AI go well. So, okay, go find that person. Who is that person? Be able to point at them. Maybe be able to point like 10 of them. But be able to point at those people, and then it's all going to be reverse engineered from there. So, okay, so let's take Harmon, for example. I'm pointing at Harmon. Now, the first step when you're doing some sort of, usually in a business, I'll use for-profit as an example here to bring in some terms that maybe people aren't familiar with. The first thing you do when you identify that persona is you have to create an offer. You have to create something in the for-profit world that they want to buy. So that's the first step. In this case, if you're building a community, you have to create an offer that gets them to want to come to your event. So that's the first step. Say, okay, I've identified Harmon. What does Harmon want? Well, in a community, it's pretty easy. Harmon wants people like him. That's the point of a community. Just like me, when I came to university, I wanted to find other people like me. I wanted people who think like me. I wanted this intersection of entrepreneurship and philosophy that I, frankly, like never quite found, but I think I'm finding more now. I want more of that. Like, that's what I want to be surrounded by. I want to be surrounded by people I respect. So that's very important. It's pointing at Harmon. What does he want? He wants people, at least in the professionally and probably personally too, that think like him, at least at a very base philosophical level, are doing things that he respects. And I have this kind of similar level of ambition and drive up here, really, is what he's looking for. Okay, so that's the offer. The offer is a room full of like-minded peers in a community. So then we have to somehow figure out, so that's the first step, we have some sort of offer. And there's a lot of different tactics about how to create a better offer, but I won't go into that. That's like the base, something to offer Harmon to get him to be like, oh yeah, I'll buy into that. And then the second step is I need to let Harmon know about what I have, because I have an offer here, Harmon's here, but Harmon doesn't know about my offer. In this world, we call it getting leads in sales. A lead is someone who is interested in the offer. So I go out and I try to get more leads. This is where marketing comes in. This is where outreach comes in. This is where communications is extremely, extremely important. Two things here. One, what do I put in this messaging such that Harmon understands what the offer is and understands why it's valuable? Because we might have a great offer, but if we communicate it horribly, he's never going to come. He's never going to know we have that great offer. So that's number one. How do you communicate it? How do you message it? Number two is, where do you put that message? So to do this, you just really, really, really have to understand Harmon well. And frankly, you just go find a bunch of Harmons and you just ask them. So you ask them a lot of things about their life. Oftentimes there's a lot of this is where a lot of customer discovery, something like the Mom Test is a very good book of trying to ask them. This is like customer discovery is used to craft this offer and figure out how do they speak, what words do they use to describe what they want. In this case, it's a little bit easier with community building because the offer is very clear. It's a room full of like-minded people. But some things, little like tricks you can do to get people in the room is you can have some sort of hook. So for example, in the accelerator I ran, I was able to assemble the most talented room of student entrepreneurs I've ever assembled in a couple months in that room. The way that we did it was one of my professor friends convinced a guy who exited his company for $190 million to come teach every Monday in that room, give a 30-minute tactical lecture. In the entrepreneur world, a big exit like that is like the gold standard of like proof of, wow, this room, I need to be there. Like, I want to talk to that guy. So you can create some sort of hook like that. And this is a great way to put this in your messaging such that it's this really high signal that like, oh, I need to go there. It kind of hooks them in. So think about like, what is this thing that Harmon really, really wants? Go ask him maybe. Go ask a bunch of them. And try to have some sort of hook maybe that gets them in the door. So for us, that was, and this accelerator is like, I was like, hey, like all I would say to them would be like, hey, I'm running this accelerator. Jack Koziel's there. He's the founder of InfoSec, and he exited his company for $190 million. You want to come? It's like, yeah, I want to come. Okay, so that hooks people in. And then you got to figure out where they are. So just like, what does a Harmon do? Harmons are usually going through, like people like Harmon usually live similar lives. They take similar actions. So where are they already hanging out, both digitally and physically? What coffee shops do they go to? What's their daily routine look like? Where are they going to dinner? Where are they spending time? Are they on X? Are they on the EA forum? Are they in Discord? Are they somewhere else? Are they on Instagram? Are they specifically following this specific Instagram page? Are they listening to Duarkesh on Spotify? Are they listening to him on YouTube? Like, where are they? And get super, super granular on that, and you'll start to see patterns about where they are. And then all you have to do is you have to combine this messaging, probably some sort of hook such that it gets them in the door, as well as some sort of messaging that uses their own words. They want to, remember, the goal is, this is I belong here. So how do you get them to feel like I belong here? And then put that somewhere where they'll be. And ideally somewhere where, like, it'd be great if you could have like someone they respect that's giving that message that adds extra proof. Okay, so like these are kind of two questions you can think about: is where are they, and what do they want? And that is how you get them to know about it properly. And there's different like tactics you can use here. So, for example, I'll give some tactics of I ran a startup career fair recently. In a week, I got 240 RSVPs, and I got 140 of those 240 RSVPs to show up on a venue that is about a 35-minute walk from campus. So like very, very hard to do that. But how was I able to do that? I was able to do that because the event itself was a startup career fair. What is like the number one thing that entrepreneurial students want is they want jobs. Either they want to start a company, but that's really, really hard. So the best second is working in a startup. So it's like the highest value possible event I could do. That's a very big reason why so many students came. It's because students love career fairs, especially ones that don't exist otherwise, startup career fairs. The other thing I did is some tactical things for marketing. I created an Excel spreadsheet of very, very specific targeted classes of students that I thought in those classes would be particularly interested in a startup career fair. I then created an Excel spreadsheet of all the professors of those classes as well as all the course numbers. And then what I did is I created a Word document in my school email. I then created an email that felt very natural, like wasn't too long, quite short, and had a little blurb at the end that the professor could send out to their students. And what I did is I created, it was like maybe 4 or 5 line email, just one line of like, here's who I am, a little proof. It's like, I'm legit. Here's a link to my LinkedIn. I'm running this career fair. I think your students will find it really valuable. Could you send this out as a Canvas announcement, which is our software we use for school, to dynamic variable section number of your class? And then there's also a dynamic variable for their name. So it sends it directly from my wis.edu, my school email, directly to their account, their email from me, with their first name on the email and the section number. And then all they have to do is copy and paste that blurb, put it as a Canvas announcement, which is very easy for them. That Canvas announcement is tied to every single student's email in that class. So every single student got a personalized email from their professor about my event in that class. And it's like, who's like the number one person that you're going to open your email from? It's your professor. You want to see if you got like a grade or something like that. So it's like, you see, so like literally what a person's seeing. I know every single student. I know every single student is looking at their email. I know every single student is looking at their professor's emails. And then then that matters on next is my subject line. I really look at that next. So then I make the subject line like, one of the subject lines was like 25 spots left dash startup career fairs. Like, yeah, they're gonna look at that. and then they look at it, then they look at the message and like, oh, startup career fair, 10 startups, and they see a list of all the startups. It's like, okay, I should probably look at that. So it's like stacking all these things. There's proof that it's professor. I know they're gonna look at it because they're professor. So like that was a tactic I did. The other tactic I did is I ran pre-events before that filtered for the types of people that want to go to a startup career fair. So this was something a little bit of an unfair advantage. We had run a career fair the semester before, so I used that as a very high intent email list of people that wanted to go here. I also used an email list that we created specifically from an event we ran that my co-founder ran about how to code with AI. It was like an AI coding workshop, and there's a lot of AI engineering internships at this career fair, so I sent it out to that email list. And I did it all specifically, I mail merged it, what's called, which is how I did that Outlook Word document thing. And I sent it to their first name, and it was like very personal. Most people thought it was just like emailed them directly. So those are like some tactics of what I did. So I kind of combined two things. I found an offer that was extremely hard to say no to, which is a startup career fair. And then I found a way. I know they're all looking in their email. I know they're all looking at emails from their professors. I know they all are going to find that to be much more credible than an email I sent from a random student. And I found a way to leverage that to make my messaging, there to be some sort of hook where they're going to look at it and they're going to find it more credible. And I found a way to put it somewhere where all of them are going to see it, which is in their email. So that like is an example hits at all of. And that was how I was able to send out like, I literally spent maybe 5 to 10 hours sending out like mail merging 600. I did like 3 rounds of like 600 emails total. And that doesn't include the emails that professors sent to their students. And then I was able to get 240 HRPs, 140 attendees to that event.
And all this in the course of a week?
Yeah, it was, yeah, I did the work in 7 days, yeah.
Yeah, that is very impressive. One thing that we touched on last night at dinner talking about this stuff was like getting people in the door is one half of it, and then another part is like making them stay and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Could
great.
you talk more about that?
So yes, so everything I just laid out has to get people there, but probably the more important part of the community is retaining people. Honestly, the 80-20 of that is you just need to be extremely particular about who you have in the room. So this is my framework for how to run events. I have a very, very different opinion about how to run different types of communities, which I think there's 2 kind of models of communities. So there's one which is you just cast a wide net, which is this one.
One being the event you threw?
The thing, yeah, the Startup Career Fair, the thing I just went all through here with the offer, the where are they, all this stuff. This is when you're trying to like cast a wide, still high intent net of like trying to get a lot of people somewhere, a lot of high intent eyeballs, a lot of people who are the right person for this event and likely to come. However, there's a different style of community, which is one that I am much more fond of, and also think works a lot better for certain things like startup accelerators or trying to find founders, when these are very, very select individuals, and it's like extremely hard to just like cast a wide net and then slowly filter down because you're going to lose them along the way. Most these like individuals who are doing something very outlierish, which is very unusual, will only come out of the room for like very high value things. And yes, so you can't just like cast this wide net, because you need to make the messaging extremely, extremely, extremely for them. Frankly, you have to text them. Like I literally text them. I get their phone number and I text them. So retaining people is like very, very hard and very, very important for this. And frankly, this is how you grow it, because most of community, especially this like very, very high signal like founder community, you have to go through referrals, because they kind of like find each other, and then that's how you grow it. First for this kind of community, I'll say that the first thing is when do you know you have one community over the other? You know you have this community when you're trying to run like a large event that maybe it's something that's like for a club or something like this, where you don't need, you kind of are trying to cast a wide net, you're trying to get people in the door. That's when you have this type of model. You have this type of model when you're trying to target very high caliber, extremely hard to reach, very like outlier type of individuals, I'll say like founders. Okay, how do you run this? What you do is you literally start with one person or a group of very small people and you set the bar extremely high. You do not let anyone in that community unless they're better than that person, or like that person that you've picked as like Harmon has to respect them, like at least equally. Ideally, they're like even like, wow, like Harmon sees this person as like someone impressive. And if you do that properly, which is extremely hard to do, you've succeeded. And okay, like that's like the 80-20. You have to set the bar extremely high, and you have to be really good at not letting anyone into those events that would be lower than the bar. It seems like really kind of exclusive and like exclusionary, but it has to be that way for this type of group. Okay, because most people are not doing things like them because they are an outlier by definition. what do those events kind of look like? I run private meetups is like a really like low cost one. If I had more money, I would run private dinners or some sort of way where it's not during the day because they're working, but like kind of at night. Some sort of way where they are not forced into doing something they don't want to do. There's some kind of events which might be useful to have some sort of structure, but most of the stuff I run is just very open. Like they aren't listening to anyone. They can figure out how they want to use their time. They can go when they want. They can leave when they want. That kind of stuff. They just want to meet more people like them. That's what they want. So maybe a private dinner, maybe a private meetup. Maybe you seed the room with people who would be valuable to them, like in the case of a founder, like investors, or like, really be investors, mentors, people who are like very specifically domain specific or very valuable for those people. And then all you're doing is you're keeping the bar very high. You're extremely dense value, which is keeping the room with peers they respect, mentors they respect, investors they respect, people that are all mission aligned, people that are all in that same boat, have similar outlier status to them. And then you just build, and then the key is you do it slowly. And I do this like for years. Like this is like 3 years. It's like I'm not rushing. I'm inviting maybe a couple new people every meetup. And if someone does not meet the bar, I don't invite them back. And I just slowly build it. And I'm like, hey, I just slowly keep it in their head. Like, hey, if you know anyone else for this, like, if you're enjoying this, like, let me know if you want to bring someone. And I just kind of keep that. Every time I invite them, I just kind of keep that front of their mind. Like, hey, also, like, if you want to invite anyone, you're totally welcome to bring us. Especially the people like you really like in that community who are really pushing the bar of that community. You want more people like them, so you want to ask them. And you just grow through referrals. I literally don't promote it. Like, I don't do any promotion. I don't do any public promotion for this. I purely text people. I keep it private, and I just ask them for referrals. So it totally like, the offer is purely just this high, super high bar of an exceptional room of people. And there's no marketing. The marketing is just me. The marketing is me going to these big events and just sifting through people manually and trying to find the one or two like Harmons. Like, oh, there they are. There they are. It's like there's a Harmon or there's a Jonah. And it's like, okay, like now I need to like put on the selling hat and I need to start this relationship. And again, I'm not like, the first step when I find something like this is it's not like, oh, you need to come to this now. It's I want to establish respect for myself. Like, if they don't respect me, then they're not going to come to my meetup. So I want to have a genuine conversation with them, be curious about what they're doing, ask a lot of questions, be someone that they enjoy talking to, someone that they feel like understands them. And then I get their phone number or whatever, and then it's easy. Then it's like, hey, I have this event I'm running next week. I would love for you to come to it. And I have like this person here, this person there, this person there. I think you might find it really valuable. And you kind of position something that is exclusive because they want it to be exclusive. The right people, when they see something exclusive, don't shy away from that. They lean into that because they're like, oh, finally, where not all like the people I don't respect are in it, to put it frankly.
Got it.
But yeah, in summary, set the bar extremely high. Find the exact person you want in it, bring them there, keep it very small, and then build it organically through referrals with no public marketing.
One of my follow-up questions to that, as you were talking, was something I thought was interesting was like the grow it slowly bit, and you were very assertive. It has to be grown slowly, which is interesting in a world where like everyone's obsessed with speed and something like this.
Yes.
Yeah, my question was like, why must it be slow? But I suppose it was kind of answered at the end with like, because organic things move slowly.
Yeah, you cannot do public marketing. I mean, it's also the fact that you need to keep the bar very high.
Yes.
So if you try to grow too fast, then you're very likely to make mistakes. And you only have so many mistakes you can make in a community like this, where if you bring in the wrong people too many times, then the community falls apart and you lose people to trust and you no longer have a community. You may no longer show up.
In your, are there other failure modes that you've experienced or have known, like in your network of people trying to do this? Have they experienced when it comes to community building besides setting the bar too low, you think?
Failure modes?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I suppose like my background is I'm mentoring a bunch of university groups that are trying to do this community building thing where we're trying to get people to work on these problems. Yeah, not a lot of them come in with the same system or background that you've laid out here. It's like maybe like one or two things that like, oh, like you just described that, but certainly not the whole comprehensive system.
What are the biggest failure points of people like this could have?
Yeah.
Doing it for a means to an end. If you have some sort of goal that you're trying to conform these people to, they will feel it and they will lose respect.
Could you put an example on that?
Yeah. Well, it's for some reason there hasn't been any other community builders in the entrepreneurship community that have, well, actually there's been maybe one or two that have truly been able to create this like very high caliber room like I have. And it's because when they try to do this, it's like they have a company and then like the goal is to like build a company, and then they try to build a community of like for the sake of growing the company. The community has to be there for the sake of itself, and you have to be like, I don't know how to like, you just have to be genuine somehow. Like you have to just like genuinely want to build a community, and you have to like do certain actions over time, which you just have to know in the moment, where it frankly is like a detriment to you, to your thing you're trying to build, and it's like the people can see it. You're just purely giving. Like a lot of the times I can give an example here of how I could have gone wrong, but I didn't. I ran a recruiting company. I'm like in the process of handing it off. For the past year, I ran it. And I've been running these private meetups as a way to find people to get into jobs. Which this is a little different because they don't pay anything and they get a job. So it's like kind of just an additional part of my community as opposed to like a means to an end. So I've kind of positioned my service in a way that just like is part of the offer for my community. And the community is like the actual thing that I'm building as opposed to my company. The company is just like an off branch of it, which that's something notable to note there. However, some way I could have gone wrong is I have a friend who is part of my community, comes to a lot of the events, and he has now graduated and he is hiring for his startups now because he worked his way up very fast and he's hiring for his startups now. And he does a lot of like, he has a lot of conversations. He hasn't specifically hired through my meetups, but he has multiple conversations every time that could result in hires. And I could ask him to pay me for those hires. Like if you hire someone on my community, pay me. I just don't. Like I just don't do that. I just don't really care. Like the community comes first, and he was someone who was in my community before he graduated, and now he is graduated, and you know, if he thought it was, eventually he would probably just ask to pay me if he got enough value from it. So I'm just like, I don't care. Like what matters is people get jobs. What matters is that this community grows, that these people have people who are like them, and that's the focus. And I'm not going to ask him to pay me if he doesn't want to. So that's an example. I think I just don't often see a lot of like successful communities like this, and I think the main reason for that is people are just too short term. Like they do it as a means to an end, and because they do it as a means to an end, it doesn't continue as long as it could, as if you just view the community itself as the thing that you need to build. And when you view the community itself as the thing that needs to build, for some reason you're able to genuinely believe that, it's going to compound over time. And if you can somehow position the aim you're trying to have as more of like some sort of value add to that community, as opposed to something that the community is feeding, like we're trying to convince people to go there, as opposed to like positioning in a way where it's like, oh, like I want to do that, and people just know they have that option if they want to. That could be a good way to avoid these like common failure points of people feeling like you're trying to push something onto them or something like this. But that would be, from what I've seen, from my end, the easiest way I could have lost respect in my community. And I think a lot of the reason why these communities don't work in the first place is because you're building for the community as a means to some sort of other end instead of building the community as an end in itself.
Got it.
Not very tactical, but it's a mindset you have to adopt, and it's something I can't explain except to just like after 3 years of doing it, and you just like don't get paid for stuff, you don't get value. It's like this like slow grind, but eventually it's like, wow, I am the most well-networked person by far in Madison, and everyone, like I had a call the other day, and this guy has had every single call he's had with someone who's an entrepreneur in the Madison community has said, you need to talk to Ben, just like naturally, and then it just like after you get to that point, it's like you have this like moat of trust, and this was after like 2 years. It's not that long of just like building extremely good events over and over again. You have this like, you only need to do it once, you know, and then like once you have that, it's like you just, as long as you don't mess it up, you just have this like extremely valuable thing where people love you and want to help you. to put it bluntly.
Makes sense. Yeah. Cool. I think that's about what I've got. If you, I guess like as a time check, it's about like 11:25 or so. I don't know when you're, okay. Yeah. We could potentially expand to, where you see the need for this mindset and skill set of community building in the civilizational resilience / existential risk space.
About it. No, for sure.
Okay.
I would say, so for what I've seen, and I think I can just apply this more generally. Like I don't know as much about other organizations. I know the most about Blue Dot right now. But I know, I think kind of like, it kind of sums up what I've said right now as like my current recommendation to the effective altruism community and civilization resilience community in very particular, but that's like only Blue Dot, so that's kind of 101, but more of the effective altruism community as a whole is, okay, there's like the spectrum of pure philosophy to like this entrepreneur that I laid out earlier. That's just like purely not thinking at all about why they're doing it, just purely like wherever the market takes me, I'll follow. Like literally, like quite literally. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you just follow the market. And right now, I would say I would put my very instinctual, not actually evidentially backed answer would be that effective altruism lands at about at least 80% towards pure philosophy. I think that's probably generous. But I'd say 80%. And I don't know how strongly, like how far over I would argue, but from what I've seen, I would almost argue that, like, again, no backing at all, that the most effective community, if like truly you want to make impact, is like 20% of these people and 80% of people who are more like this. Where honestly, it's more like me, where I have like, I'm like 80% just like doing things, but I still care a lot about why I'm doing it. And I'm like very mission aligned, and I truly take action based on philosophy, not on the market. You need like I think those are the most effective people from what I've seen, where it's like just enough, like 80% of these people, 20% still like more philosophy or like somewhere here, because I think that's important to direct these people. But I think you need a lot more of these people. But they at least need this like, okay, I am ethically aligned, I'm not going to go rogue, and I'm not going to do a lot of damage, which I don't know what that threshold is, but probably over that threshold. But you need it's some sort of like, you know, like if like this is the threshold for where that is, let's say it's at 20% on the spectrum, you need like a, you know, like this, like, I don't know if it's a power law kind of distribution, but it's like kind of this kind of thing. And maybe there's like a nice little bump like up here more, or I don't know, maybe it's higher, but you need more of this than this, and I think right now it's the opposite. Okay, so that's like that's a shift I think needs to happen. And I was like, okay, how do you do that? I think how you do that is, I think that, I don't know for sure, so I'm going to make guesses here. I think because it's such a radical shift, I think you need to take radical action, and therefore you need to, there's this outlier model of community that I'm talking about, where I think there needs to be more of this happening, this being the pick your Harmon, and then build an extremely high bar. This is like exclusive community versus this. This is the cast a wide net, what I call it. Like, this is casting a wide net, is this startup career fair model, and then this is like the picking your Harmon. This is the Harmon model. You pick your Harmon, and then you set the bar very high, and you only let people in who Harmon respects. They meet the Harmon bar. So I think there needs to be more of the Harmon community. The reason I say that is because when I went to EAG, I felt like I didn't belong, because 80% of people were not like me. They were way too philosophical for me. Not because I love philosophy, but in the professional world, I just see the value in doing things, and therefore I lose respect for people who don't have that. And so I think there needs to be this like kind of almost new community built, frankly, like as opposed to just like infusing them in. I don't think that works. I think you just like start over and you just start building from scratch. You take a Harmon and you put them in a room, and then slowly over time, and I know we don't have time, but like I don't think you can do it on the other way. I think it's better than not doing it, because if you don't do it, then you're just not going to get it. You pick a Harmon, and you just slowly over time you grow that. And then as the group gets bigger, you start splitting it, because you need to keep the group small. And you build these kind of like decentralized like groups. There's a company called Hampton that's run by Sam Parr, who's a co-host of the podcast My First Million, very much like for-profit businessy kind of stuff. But he runs these like founder support groups, where Hampton organizes these like 8-person, highly exclusive CEO founder groups they meet maybe once a month and have these like very exclusive 8-person events, or maybe a little bit larger dinners, but they don't go more like 20 people. And it's like these support groups. It's something like that. And I think that's when you start building up this like base, then I think it starts to kind of like shift the curve a little bit, because then you start getting this like new branch, where if you have these people that are, and let's say these people are the founders, these people are building organizations, and you have these people building organizations, they're going to hire people like them. And so you start organically, if you activate the right people, these Harmons who are building these companies, maybe a lot of them fail, but the ones that succeed they're hiring a lot of people. Then you have this trickle effect. You have this founder trickle effect, where like if you go into like an Elon company, you see a little of Elon in every employee. Like every employee has this like maniacal, whatever you think of Elon, but like this like absolutely maniacal, like crazy person in them. They have a little bit of that. So I think that's how you start shifting the balance. Is you start with the outlier model. You just gotta wipe a clean slate and you go for that, and then slowly over time, you build that up as an exclusive thing, and then those people are now kind of part of the community tangentially, and they build these organizations that attract people like them, and then now you've kind of started shifting the balance.
Got it. Seems like a good prescription. Yeah. I think that's about what I've got for today. I'll leave with the classic question that you introduced me to at EAG, which is, given what you know about our conversation right now, what question should I have asked you?
I hate you. Write that down. I hate you. Okay. Just kidding. I hate you, JK. I love you. Great question. I think the things that I wanted to cover where this number one, this mindset that you can adopt, maybe in no particular order, but one thing was this mindset you wanted to adopt where you reverse engineer from the ideal person. And both types, the Harmon model as well as the startup career fair model, the cast a wide net model, both types start with reverse engineering from that person. And then there's different tactical steps along the way, but once you start there, a lot falls into place pretty naturally. So I think that's something very important that we already hit on. I think this idea of building community for its own sake and not to serve a different purpose is extremely, extremely important. And I think that just takes a type of person to like truly be able to just do that. And I did it for like 2 years without getting paid, and I had it looked like a complete waste of time. Like I was not getting any professional advancement from it at all, but I got friends, and that was enough for me. so I just kept doing it. And you need more people like that somehow. I don't know how you increase that number. And I could guess, but I don't know. But I maybe that ticks something in people that makes them more like that I think is very important. But a question that I would ask that we didn't talk about. I think we're good. I think you got it. I think you did a good job. All right. Boom. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Thanks for coming on, Ben.
No problem.
All right.
By the way, anyone wondering, this is chai tea. I'm a huge chai tea fan. If you're wondering what I was drinking.
Cool. I had a latte with almond milk, but it's in the trash now, and I've already drank it.
Oh. So, wait, the almond milk's in the trash, or is it in your stomach?
It's in my stomach. The coffee cup is in the trash.
Got it. Okay.
I've been going down the gradient of like sweetness in coffee. Started with frappes.
Yeah.
And then my ex was like, "You're drinking a frappe?" And I'm like, "Okay, I can never drink frappes ever again."
Wait.
And then
was this what your ex said while you were in a relationship with her?
Yeah.
Okay,
and then it was mochas. And
Ooh.
then my roommate Max was like, "You're drinking a mocha?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'm never drinking mochas ever again."
Yep.
And then I asked what Max gets, and he's like, "I get a latte." So now I'm on a latte. And recently I've been introduced to the idea of a cappuccino, and apparently after that it's
Wait, you
coffee.
drink lattes?
Yeah. Oh, fuck. No! All right.
I'm just kidding. I don't drink coffee. This is what happened to me with sparkling water.
Yeah.
I was a sparkling water fiend during COVID.
Uh-huh.
Fiend. Like Travis Scott levels of fiend.
Uh-huh.
And I would fiend for that. And I would have like 10 cans like in my room like by the end of the day.
Uh-huh.
And it was all black cherry.
Uh-huh.
It was black cherry fiend. And I got a little sick of it. So then I stepped down to orange and grapefruit. Absolute fiend. Then one time I had like, like vitamin C drink, that orange vitamin C drink.
I know, yeah.
I had that for like a week straight because my throat was super sore, and I got sick of the orange flavor. So I got sick of that orange sparkling water. Then I stepped down to a little bit more basic, lemon and lime. And then eventually I just became so in love with the bubbles of sparkling water that now my legitimate favorite drink in the world is plain sparkling water.
You are crazy.
I love it. I enjoy it like people enjoy art.
Do you have like a tier list of like sparkling? Is there like Perrier or whatever?
Vichy Catalan. Vichy Catalan in Barcelona is the best sparkling water in the world. It's got this nice. Oh my gosh! You just need to go drink it. It's indescribable with words. It's a piece of art. It's a piece of music. It's incredible.
Okay.
It's incredible, and I think most people probably wouldn't even like it, but I freaking love it.
Do you think the pipeline's necessary to get to a state where you can like it, or do you think you can go in straight?
I think sparkling water connoisseurs know that it takes time to refine your bubble palate.
Right.
Your carbonation divinations. And this takes time. So I think to truly enjoy it, you need some time to work your way down to appreciate the foundation of sparkling water. However, I think anyone can enjoy a nice Vichy Catalan on a nice, warm Spanish afternoon. So, yeah.
Cool.
That's what I'll say.
Nice. I think we'll leave it at that.
Leave it at that. Vichy Catalan. A la Madrid.